Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, USA Global TV and Radio watchers and listeners. Welcome back to those of you that has been on the platform before, and welcome to everybody else that's new and joining us for the first time. My name is Mariska du Preez, and I am here on the show called Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio platform. So we have looked at psychological safety the last couple of episodes and had a bit of an exploration around how we might be able to invite that in for our teams. And one of the things that a lot of leaders, whether they are new or experienced leaders, ask me is, where do I even start with my leadership development? So for some leaders, they literally get dumped into leadership. They accept this wonderful role, and then not much else happens regarding developing them into that leadership space. And there's always a lot of debate around what's the best way to learn and how to do this thing. So I thought today would be a great opportunity to let you guys know a little bit more around what types of learning opportunities we have as human beings and how to go about looking for the ones that would suit you in the specific stage where you are in best. And understanding that no one learning opportunity has the silver bullet effect. Each one of them, we need to be intentional about how we use them, why we use them, and what we want to get out of it. And understanding this a little bit better will make it a bit easier, I'm hoping, for you and those in your team to be able to upskill yourself within this environment. So let's start off. We know that typically, for most of us, having studied something before going into the industry that we chose to go into, there was some form of formal education. So for the most part, that would look like learning in a classroom of some sort or having formal learning material that we go through, curriculums and stuff like that. So typically, when we go into the more academic areas of things and need to learn very hard type of skills, there's certain basic concepts and ideas that we need to understand before we even get into whatever the work is that we're going to do. So thinking about leadership, this is also the case. We might need to gain some additional business acumen. We might need to gain some additional financial acumen. So all of these things we can learn through a course of some sort or learning materials in a space. We can also learn this via on-the-job type of work. So if you think about the financial area, it might be that you are now in charge of a budget. Now, preferably, we don't want to muck the budget up before we even got to running our department properly. So we want to at least understand how it works. How do I set up a proper budget? What is it that I need to look at? How do I do proper forecasting? That sort of thing. Now, other than formally learning it, another way of learning is on-the-job learning. And here, of course, it might be that somebody else does the thing and we learn from them. So apprenticeship type of roles typically will fall in this category. We also find that within leadership, it might be that the more junior leaders, so it might be a supervisory role or a more junior type of project manager role, they will also learn on the job. So they will not only learn about how to manage and lead people, they might also learn a little bit more around what is entailed within the rest of the function, be it budgeting or whatever other skill sets it is that they required. Now, in this area, again, you will most probably have a more senior person that will have a bit of a look or input into what it is that might be happening within this area. And that segues into the next type of training that we get. And this is mentoring. So mentoring is where we have a person that's been in a specific role or in a specialized area for quite some time. So they know the ins and outs, they have done their dues, they understand what to expect, and they have exercised their muscles enough to have an automatic response to things. Now, if we are new and we are novice in that specific area, having a mentor is wonderful because we can go with a case study, for instance, to our mentor and say, well, I'm struggling with this thing. This is what happened, and I don't know quite how to handle it. What would you typically do if this were to happen? And you guys can have a little bit of a discussion around how that might look like. And the mentor will normally have very specific things that they've observed within their time in that specific area or space. So mentors have a knowledge set that we want to learn from. And that's where mentors come in. So they have a specific knowledge set. And we might have different mentors for different things. So we might have a mentor that comes out of the financial industry or financial part, one of the department heads maybe, that has a lot of financial understanding and know exactly what to look at when we look at our budget or when we want to do proper forecasting, for instance. We will have a different mentor when we maybe need to look at project management. We might need to go to a person that specializes in projects. And it might even be that we need a person that specializes in certain types or sizes of projects, depending on what we identified we needed to learn and who would be the best fit to learn that from. When we have a mentor-mentee relationship, of course, the mentor will also learn from the person that they are mentoring, because we bring a different set of skills to the table in general. So understanding how the mentor-mentee relationship works and how we need to be very specific around what we want to gain from that relationship and how and where it is that we want to do our learning in that relationship. Then the next piece where we can learn is this thing called coaching. Now, I know these days A whole bunch of people call themselves coaches, and, well, they may or may not be. Now, what is the difference between a mentoring relationship and a coaching relationship? The big difference is that the coach will not have a specific industry expertise that this would be similar to a mentor. So in a mentor relationship, we specifically want to go, say, for instance, we want to learn more about business acumen or the financial side specifically. We will look for somebody with that form of expertise, and we might even look for somebody for that form of expertise in our field. So they know exactly how the environment looks like, what it is that we're going through, and what to expect in the environment. Whereas with a coaching relationship, that's different. Now, the coach will bring their own skill sets. They will also bring their own experiences. The thing that the coach brings, that's the most important thing to consider when we think about coaching, is an environment to help us think for ourselves. They help us to figure out how and what it is that we want to be doing and changing, and basically how we want to be in our environment as a leader, or as a parent, or as fill in coaching that you want to get. So they provide the space in order for us to be able to figure this out. They also provide us with very helpful questions. Now, you will also get helpful questions from your mentor. The type of conversations will definitely differ, though. So with your mentor, you may or may not get some advice, some tips and tricks on things that you might try out, or things that they might have seen in the environment because they are familiar with it. Whereas with your coach, it is more of a mirroring of you. And in saying a mirroring of you, we as human beings bring ourselves in each and every conversation that we enter. Doesn't matter the conversation, and doesn't really matter the environment. If we are there, well, we bring the energy that we bring. Now, because of this, our coach will observe and also, of course, bring their own energy. And part of that is to provide us with a space to explore how it is that we show up and do that internal reflections on what works, what doesn't work, and how we might want to change what's not quite serving us at the moment. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, typically when I need to learn a new behavior, it can be really, really difficult. And I know, especially when we're moving from a specialization into leadership, we are always focused on the technical stuff. And the reason we are focused so much on the technical stuff is because that's where we are comfortable. That's what we know. That's what we learned. We have expertise in that field. So of course we want to spend more time there. Moving into leadership, though, we need to start to embrace a new way of being with other people, a new way of showing up. And this is where coaching comes in, because one, it helps us to become more aware of actually how we are showing up, not only through the questions, but also some of the observations that the coach might have in our interactions. And it also gives us a safe space to explore as well as test out some of the new things and ways of being that we want to bring into our leadership space. Now, as I mentioned, each one of the different ways of learning are valid, and they have each got their own purpose and reason for existing. The thing that we need to do is we need to understand and be intentional about what and how is it that I want to be learning. Now, I cannot always learn from a book and expect that I am just like that going to be able to implement it. Knowing it in my head and actually doing it with my body and feeling it in my heart, totally different things. It does not translate directly from your head into the rest of the world by us reading a book. That's not the way that humans work. Now, part of this is helping us restructure. Now, the neuroscience has definitely done a lot of research, and they found that the brain is very plastic. So what does this mean? It means that we can literally rewrite our brains. We are continuously doing that. If you think of a time when you had a great idea, whether it was during a walk in the shower or just while you were going about your daily activities, that was a new link that you made in your brain. Now, if you didn't write it down or you didn't act on it, you will also most probably have had the same experience as me, and the idea got lost. I forgot about it. It doesn't necessarily come up anymore. And that's because once we have made the link, it's a very, very fragile thing. There is a link, and we need to continue to build on it. The more we build it, the stronger it becomes. The stronger it becomes, the more we have a new neural pathway. So not only do we need to make the new links, we also need to continuously build that new link once it's made. Now, while reading the book, we might make a few links, which was wonderful. And then we put the book down, or we finish watching the webinar, and we go off and we, go back to life. And we forget the thing we read or the piece of content that we watched. Sometimes we do read or watch a piece of content and it has a link to something else. Now we have an existing neural pathway and we get something else that's attached to it. This is a little bit easier to keep because there's already something there. And we have a tendency to integrate it a little bit more easier with what we already know. And hence, we weave it into our knowledge base. This may or may not happen often for us, and not necessarily as often as it possibly can happen. Now, when we have experiential learning, so for instance, in our workspace or working with a mentor or a coach, the likelihood of us actually being able to incorporate our new way of thinking into our brain and make a proper neuro network from that is increased. The reason why is because we practice it more often. So it gets ingrained. There's something that's a lot stronger that's being built. So that's one of the reasons. The other thing that also happens when we have experiential learning, for instance, is we do it. We put our body into the thing that we are doing and then get better at it. So if you were to think of the first time you drove a vehicle, wasn't the easiest thing. You had to literally concentrate. Okay, I have to have my hands on the steering wheel, and there's different pedals at the bottom, and now I need to figure out which one is which one. Remember to do this with this foot and this with that foot, and then do this with this hand, and figure out all the rest of the things. So it took a lot initially when we started off driving a car for the first time. And after some time, don't know about you guys, but these days I'm able to drive the vehicle as well as fiddle with radio and be able to maybe eat a snack at the same time. Please do not be on your phone while you are driving. That is just dangerous. Even though it might be possible for you to do that, your concentration will not be in the place where it's supposed to be. So we are able to do more things because a lot of this has become automatic. Why is it automatic? Well, it's automatic because we have a very strong neural network that's been built and strengthened over time in order for us not to have to think about it. And this is what we want to do within our leadership space as well. So we want to give ourselves opportunities to experiment and practice and try things out. Now, the other element of learning is also reflecting. And I know in general, for most people, we don't reflect as often as we need to. It feels like a chore. And why bother? Now, I'll explain to you why bother. The reason why reflecting is so powerful is what it helps us to do is it helps us to learn. So whether we had a successful outcome or whether maybe it didn't go so well and fell on its face, we can learn from both instances. And the only time, as Benjamin Hardy noted so aptly, when we fail is when we do not learn. It's got nothing to do with the outcome. And we only learn when we reflect on it, when we think back on, okay, this went well, and I want to understand exactly what around it went well. What did I do? What sort of behaviors came out that helped to make this go really well? Because when I know this, I can do it again. I can replicate it, and guess what? I can strengthen my neural network. If I don't reflect on it, it sort of becomes haphazard and a by chance thing. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. You don't really know when, why, or how to replicate it. The same for when something maybe didn't go so well. I can go and reflect and think about, well, what happened in this specific case that caused it not to go so well? Did I see any of these indicators beforehand? What is it that maybe caused it? How might I be able to spot it next time? What would give me indications early on so that I can change course before it gets to the failure portion? And all of those questions will help me to figure out how I can learn from this experience in order to next time make it a better experience. And guess what? Yes, again, we are building our neural network in all the right places and not in all the wrong places. So these are all different ways that we learn. And through mentoring, there's some of these elements that come in. Through on-the-job training, there's some of these elements that come in. Through normal educational learning, there's some of these elements that come in. And of course, through coaching, there's loads of these elements that come in. And the reason why there is so many of these elements that come in coaching specifically, is because when we go through the coaching process, we actually look at what it is that we want to be building. So we're reflecting on what happened, and we decide on how we want to do it different. Plus, we have a safe space in which we can try things out and see what works and what doesn't work, and then go and take it out into the world with a neural network that's already well and truly on its way for growing. So this is really a little bit of what it is that we need to consider when we are thinking about how we want to grow as leaders. There are multiple different ways to learn. And I want you to be intentional about how and what it is that you want to be learning. And I know, especially for my specialists and those that's still in the front line of leadership, there's a lot of times when we think, well, I don't really need a coach, or I'm just so busy with all these other things. And if we take the time and we gift that to ourselves, we will find that we can actually get a lot better, a lot faster by starting to build those neural networks with the help of somebody that creates the space to do that. So that is our lesson today in developing as a leader, and where you can possibly start when you are thinking of your leadership journey, as well as the journey for educating your team and developing your team. Now, if you would like to discuss this topic or any of my other topics that we have here on USA Global TV's platform, please do contact me via my email, which is mariska@journey2discover.com. Or alternatively, you can always DM me, so that's direct message, on LinkedIn. And I would love to connect with you and start our conversation. Until next time, I hope that you have a fantastic leadership development journey and become the leader that everybody wants to have. Until next time, bye.